Welcome to Lesson 1. In this lesson, you'll learn how to use the Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud work area efficiently. You'll also discover how to open a document using Adobe Bridge, how to use the Tools panel, and how to easily navigate through your images. As you can see, I have Photoshop Creative Cloud open. I'll refer to it as CC from this point forward. And I'm going to choose File, Browse in Mini Bridge. Now let me just explain to you that Bridge used to install as a default along with Photoshop. If you've installed Photoshop Creative Cloud, when you select either Browse in Bridge or Browse in Mini Bridge, you may be taken to the Adobe Application Manager first to download and install the Bridge application. I've already done that. So when I select Browse in Mini Bridge, you'll see that a panel appears at the bottom of my workspace. Now, you can, of course, adjust where any of your panels are, and we'll discuss this as we go through. But if you don't like Mini Bridge being spanned across the bottom, you can click on the tab and move it. Now, I'm going to put it back where it was by going to Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials. I'm going back up, and I'm selecting Browse in Mini Bridge, and you'll see that I'm in the desktop. You can see the breadcrumbs across the top. And I'm actually in the PSO1 Lessons folder that you can download or get off your DVD that was supplied in the back of the book. I'm opening up an image here, but before I do, let me just explain to you that the reason you might want to use Mini Bridge is because it gives you the ability to investigate images before actually opening them up in Photoshop. It also provides the opportunity to filter your images and also to search them in an easy space instead of going out into your directory system to find the images you need. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up PS0101 by just double clicking on it. And it's going to launch in Photoshop. I want to review the tools with you. You'll notice I have a tools panel over on the left, and it is a panel and it actually can be clicked and dragged by clicking on that area up on the top, the gray area. You can also change this into a 2-column panel by clicking on the arrows. And I typically do that, especially when I'm doing videos, so that you can see all the tools easily. You might want to do that on your own as well. I want to explain these sections to you. The tools in this section up here are for selecting, cropping, and measuring. You'll see I have a second section in here, and this is where my retouching and painting tools are. If I go down into the next section, that's where my drawing and type tools are. And then if I come down to this bottom area, that's where my navigation tools are. And then of course I have my foreground and background colors down here. I also have some masking tools down at the bottom that we'll discuss in later lessons. There are a lot of tools in Photoshop. You may find that you only use a quarter of them or half of them. You'll find your favorites and use them, so don't worry about being overwhelmed by the amount that are there. In Lesson 1, each tool is defined as well as the keyboard shortcut to access it as well. I'm going to show you how to use a couple of these tools so you can see how everything works together in Photoshop. First of all, I'm going to select the brush tool. You'll notice that when I select the brush tool, or any tool, options appear across the top, in which I can change different properties for that particular tool. Now I'm going to use the brush tool, and first of all I'm going to go down to the foreground color, and you can see that I can double click on the set foreground color and that pulls up a color picker. In this color picker you'll notice that when I slide this item up and down, it's actually changing the color. That's because this graphic over here is representing a big circular area of color, and right here in the middle where it's selected at this point is black. And even though I'm spinning this wheel around, you can still see that my color is black. I need to get that color out of that circle, and you'll notice that now when I click and drag, my color is actually changing. I'm going to select a blue color, a bright blue color, nothing specific for this, just an example. And then I'm clicking OK. And you'll see that now my foreground color has been replaced. I'm taking my brush, and as a default, I'm just clicking and dragging. And you'll see that it's opaquely covering my image, and it doesn't look necessarily nice, but I'm going to show you how you can work with the options in order to control the paintbrush and its application on your image. So I'm going to press Command Z or Control Z if you're on a PC. Next, I'm going up to the brush size, and I'm going to slide this over to about 100 pixels. I'm also going to make sure the hardness is way down at 0, meaning it's going to be a nice soft brush. Now you'll notice that when I go out to the image that my cursor has changed. If for whatever reason you have your caps lock key down, you'll see the precision cursor instead, which does not show you the brush dimensions. I'm releasing the caps lock key so I can see that again. Now even though I've done that and I've made a large soft brush, you'll see I'm still opaquely covering this part of the image, and I don't really want to do that. So I'm pressing Command Z again, and this time I'm changing the blending mode. And you'll notice there are a bunch of different blending modes that are available in many different forms. I'm selecting color, which means keep all the grayscale, the detail information in my image, but just colorize it with the color that you have selected. It looks a little better, but it's still a little too obvious for me. So I'm pressing Command Z, and this time I am selecting that I want about a 20% opacity. So you can either type in the value up here in the text field, or you can use the slider. In fact, even these items, these words, are sliders. You'll notice I can click on opacity and even drag that as well, making it really easy for you to change your options. Now I'm painting, and you can see I'm just adding a nice light blue boost to the sky instead of an obvious change. Okay, so now that you understand the tools and the options and how they work, let's discuss all the panels off to the right. Again, this can be a little overwhelming for somebody who's just starting to work in an application that uses tools and panels, but it's rather easy. And again, you'll find a select group of panels, just like you will with tools, that you'll use all the time. Now you'll notice that off to the right, there is an organization to this that's already been set up, but that I can click on a panel to pull it forward. I can even click and drag the swatches panel to pull it out. I have access to a panel menu that allows me to see the items as a small list, large list, so I can see the text that goes along with these swatches, or I can go back to just seeing swatches. Since you can click and drag many of these panels out, which you'll be learning how to use throughout the lessons, you can sometimes have a very messy workspace. And at any time, if you want to clean that up, you can go under Window to Workspace, and you'll see that there are preset workspaces for a lot of different tasks, including photography and typography. And all these workspaces will do is just pull out the panels that you might need if you're doing a photography task or a typography task so that you can access them easily. I'm going back to Workspace, and I'm selecting Essentials. And then I'm going back to Workspace, and I'm saying reset those essentials back to where they were. Now another thing to keep in mind is that if these panels and these tools get in your way and you just want to see your image, press the Tab key. It's a toggle key, and they come back and they go away. You can also press Shift Tab just to get rid of the panels on the right. And again, that's also a toggle key. Let's use the panels for something. I am going to take the swatches panel out, so I clicked on swatches to pull it forward, and I'm dragging it out. I'm also going up to the panel menu where you see a whole list of options, and I'm going back to the small thumbnail view. That's because I want to easily find a color over here. And I'm selecting the pure red orange. And I still have the paintbrush selected, and you'll notice I still have the options, but now just a different color. So when I start painting, I can get that same effect on the other part of the sky. Since I have this at a 20% opacity, I can continue painting and painting and painting and building this up until I get it to the strength of color that I want. Now let's say that I went too far. You've seen already how I can press Command or Control Z, but I can also take advantage of the History panel, which resides over here as an icon in the Essentials workspace. And if I click on this and drag it out so I can see it, you'll see that my last 20 steps are recorded, and I can easily go back. And you're seeing that as I go back, I'm undoing, and you can see the buildup of that color is going away. You'll also see that you can quickly click on the original image to go back to the way it was. Now, as long as these items are gray and italic, that means if I do something else, I'm going to lose all those steps. But if they're still there and visible in the History panel, I can go back to where I was at any time. We'll be using the History panel in later lessons. If you like the idea of multiple undos, you can also get the same effect by pressing Command-Option-Z on the Mac or pressing Control-Alt-Z on the PC. And if you press Command-Shift-Z, you can go forward. Or, of course, Control-Shift-Z on the PC. I want to show you one more thing about the workspace before we finish up this lesson. If you find that you are using certain panels all the time, you can create your own little panel groups by grabbing by the tab and putting it next to another item. And you'll see I'm grabbing this tab and I'm dragging it in. I can take this panel and maybe I want to put it down here. And maybe I even want to have my properties panel, which we're going to use a lot later, out in the open right here. So with this, I can go under Workspace and I can create a new workspace. Click on Save. And now anytime I want to go to that workspace, we'll go back to Essentials. We'll reset it. But now I can go back to Gen at any time and I can have my panels where I want them. So in this lesson, you learned about the workspace in Photoshop CC. This has been Jennifer Smith for Digital Classroom.